Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April 1st, 2026 uh, Downtown Revitalization Quality Community Advisory Committee meeting, CAC. I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. First thing I'd like to do is introduce our new alternate, Ben Richardson, who's up to my left. He's going to act as the alternate for the Aging Task Force to help out Susan carry the weight of this most excellent responsibility. So I'll give you a few moments to introduce yourself, Ben. You got, I'll turn your mic on too and everything. There you go.
Okay. That hurdle's
We're pretty
over with.
fancy here.
I was worried about all these little hurdles that I had to pass. Yeah, so I've been on the aging task force, I think, for 3 years now. I'm a seniors real estate specialist. I'm a realtor with that National Association specialty. Um, I help anybody buy and sell, but I specialize in working with seniors who are transitioning usually into senior living communities. So assisted living, independent living, memory care, all of those. I also organize and put on the Senior Resource Fair for the last 3 years here in Tualatin. We just did that on the 16th, and we had over 200 seniors attend that. It was pretty good. So I've been involved with the chamber for a while. I was an ambassador. That's where I don't know if you, but I recognize Skip
You know
over
that
there.
guy?
Yeah, I know Skip. So um, that's my involvement in the community.
Right. Well, thanks for joining the committee.
Yeah.
With that, we'll just do another refreshing round of introductions. We'll start with Chris. Make sure you turn your mics on, just like Chris did.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Chris Bruin. Did you want to introduce any more than that, or
Or whatever you want to say in like in 30 seconds.
been in Tualatin for, I don't know, 25 years on the budget committee? Yeah.
Okay, there it goes. Skip Stanaway, representing the chamber, but longtime Tualatin residents and business owner here in Tualatin.
I'm Chris Tunstall. I've lived in Tualatin most of my life. So did my father, and my grandmother, and so on, back up a few generations. I'm on the River Park CIO board, and I'm also on the Commercial Citizen Involvement Board, community involvement. So,
Hi, I'm Janine Wilson, and I'm representing the CIOs, also a member of River Park, though.
I'm Kathy Holland, and I'm representing the commercial CIO. I've lived in Tualatin since 1991.
Christina?
My name's Christina George. My brother and I grew up in Wilsonville, and now he and his wife are here with their two kids in Tualatin. We opened up Archer Cafe just over a year. We made it. Yeah, so I'm representing small business.
My name's Kaden Edwards, and I am the youth alternate.
My name is Janet Steiger-Carr. I'm the chair of the Tualatin Arts Advisory Committee and a lifelong theater professional.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Vieira Aschenbrenner. I'm on the IDEA Committee.
You're still Ben? Aquila?
Hi, I'm Aquila Hurd-Ravitch, Community Development Director. I was really trying to come up with like something along the April Fool's line, and I just couldn't do it. I was going to say I'm representing Tiger, and I'm like, that's not even that funny. So anyway.
And I'm Quinn. I staff this committee.
All right. Again, welcome everybody. Kristen. Oh, yeah. Kristen, we can't see you.
Hi, Kristen Sacco, Tualatin City Councilor. I've lived in Tualatin since 2007. And sorry, I can't be there in person, but I'm here to help and participate. Thank you.
Valerie Pratt, Tualatin City Council President, and I think I've lived here since '96. So it's been a while.
Right. Frank Bubenick, mayor of Tualatin for 8 more months. Moved here when the Commons opened in '94, and Steve Stolze was mayor still. So the pre-Lou days. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Just a reminder for the folks who were here and might have not been here. Last meeting, remember, we finished evaluating the civilist recommendations, and then we went through that scoring exercise for all the recommendations from the Oregon Consulting Group. Today, we're going to have a little bit change of pace where we're not going to do any scoring. That's why you need to bring your phone or tablet. Today, what we're going to do is look at some of the renderings from the architectural design studio from U of O of their ideas of what the downtown blocks could look like. A couple weeks ago, they came and did their final presentations here in this room, which was divided in two. Many of us were there for that exercise where we saw roughly, 10, 13 different ideas of what our downtown could look like. And I was super impressed. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I was joking with Valerie about walking in and going, "What, are you kidding me?" But that didn't happen. I mean, these designs were fantastic. And some of them, like, were out of the ballpark where I'm like, if that could happen and we could have a city looking like that, that'd be fantastic. So I'm looking forward to have the committee's opinion on these renderings because I think you're going to be super excited because you actually got to see something and their ideas. Skip served as a juror. There was jurors looking at reviewing the projects, giving the architectural critique versus, mine and Valerie's, oh, that's pretty kind of thing. Skip was asking the tough questions, and the students did a fantastic job with the questions and answers from the judges. So I do look forward to this because we spent 4 hours. It was a long day, but it was fantastic going over these presentations. And Christine was there, and so Christina was there, and it was really good. I mean, the only thing that stunk was that due to some technical challenges, it wasn't recorded, which would have been tough anyway because they had dual presentations going on. So with that, that's what we'll be doing tonight. So lots of fun to come. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Quinn for some housekeeping.
All right, first item is I have some more binder materials for you, and these are the ones with the all the cool pictures that we're going to be looking at today. Just like last time, because we have a new member, I'm going to first ask you to turn to page 1 of your binder and tear it out. But that does not apply to you, Ben, or to you, Kelsey, because I've already updated your binders.
Page 1. Mine starts with page.
We need 10.
I think it's this one. This 1B. And meeting 7.
We're like, what meeting are we?
No, he's updating this.
Oh no, this one's good, but
it
should be the roster one.
Where's you say tab or page 1?
Page 1, the roster.
The roster.
It's like for 01, right? Where that out? It says 01B replaced with 01C.
And does all this go with that? Or?
That goes past tab 10.
Yeah, that was. I don't have. They're not in tabs. So I'm just.
After that. Your tab list.
So mine is my last tab, so I used to put it up there. So it's still in 18. It's a hard copy of it. I really appreciate it. I really do. I've been on that a couple days to look at, especially this much material. Really helpful.
Well, I just looked at where I should rent.
Oh, good.
And the pronunciation.
Yes. Yeah, and did it give you some of the background? I think it's like a French word and something about like small
did, I can
parts
go
or
that
something like that. But basically, yeah, to talk about.
Please still take your paper clip.
Certainly there's something you, either models or something to draw.
You wrote on it.
with or like put a plan together, design.
Chat gave me everything except the history of it. Oh, it comes from French.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so everybody got everything in their binders? Looks like it. All right. That moves us to approval of minutes. Just a couple of reminders. If you're an alternate and your primary's here, don't vote on the motion to approve the minutes. Only the primary has to do it. If you're your alternate and there's no primary here, you get to vote. You don't have.
I move adoption of the minutes.
Wait, guys, you don't do just got to put the little thing there. You don't have to be at the last meeting to vote on the minutes. So you can vote for me even though you weren't here. Now, Kath.
Now, I was there. I move adoption.
Have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion on the motions? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. All right. Do you want, so group photo, we're going to do this or we're going to wait? How do you want to do this? All right, let's do it. We're inside or outside since it's sunny or? All right. All right. So that brings us to item number 4, review scored recommendations. Quinn.
Okay. This is a 2-minute agenda item. I sent all of these out to you in advance. This is just a reminder that the recommendations that you have been, or the recommendations that you've been scoring and providing comments on at the last 2 meetings, all of those aggregated scores and comments are ending up in this big master spreadsheet. We had a few folks who submitted additional comments who weren't at the last meeting, which is exactly what we're looking for, and I've aggregated them here. I sent those out in last week's prep email. If you have additional thoughts on the recommendations that we've scored already, or you're talking to somebody and you have something that you want to make sure goes on the record, send it to me. I'll put it in here so it doesn't get lost, and we will be returning to this big master spreadsheet here in down the line. But we're not doing any scoring today, so we don't have to go any further on this, but I just wanted to remind you that it's here and to show you that your work from last time got captured. Any questions or comments on this one? All right. So let's if it's all right with you, then I think we could dive into our main activity for the day, which is the review of the renderings from the architecture design studio. So we have I think the easiest way of doing this is going to be to split into small groups for the bulk of our time. But before I do, I just want to provide a little bit of context. And maybe even before that, do any of the folks, I know Mayor Bubenik shared a little bit about his experience last Friday, but does anybody else who was there, Skip or Christina or Caden, do you have any observations that you want, or Council President Pratt, any observations or comments that you'd like to share with the rest of the group who wasn't able to make it? Oh, Chris, sorry.
I was very impressed, and I think it is really important that we involve the students in this process for their benefit as well as ours. And by looking at all those, I didn't get to hear all of the presentations, just part of them, but they put their heart and soul into what they did, and they really gave us some very interesting concepts which we can draw from and also use when we're looking to involve investors or someone willing to do the construction and build one of these structures and have businesses and housing and parking and all that. It gives some ideas instead of just looking at the blank square on the ground and go, well, what can we do with this? So yeah, it was very insightful. Thank you.
I'm going to echo what the mayor said. We honestly were going, oh, hopefully we'll get 1 or 2 good ideas. And there were so many great ideas. And I've been thinking there's a couple of them I really loved and that I'd love to somehow combine them.
Yeah, yeah.
And the thing at the end that I really like too is you could really get a feel for what that could be and how it can flow and bring people in and be a more attractive place for people to go.
Thank you. Yes, Skip.
Well, I agree. I think it was a great exercise to, go through, and it was good for the students too, because very rarely do they get to really work on something that is, really really there, because usually it's, the professor comes up with what the program's going to be and what the design is supposed to accomplish, whereas this time it was real. I think what we need to do is it's very easy to kind of focus in on kind of what we, just the image we liked. I think what we need to do is remember is what is the kind of that concept or that theme that makes us why we like it. Because in the next stages, that's what's important, because when you're a student, you don't have to worry about the budget. You don't have to worry about any other things. You just create, which is great. That's what school's all about. But there's a lot more to it. So that's why I think if we can, remember, okay, we like this. Well, what would we like about it? What did it do to help Tualatin? What did it do to the area? And, so they're more kind of general, or I should say maybe more specific goals as we, continue this. But that way, in years to come, we can encourage, developers or whoever to really try and accomplish what the overall concept or theme was of what it would do to the city.
I sure am glad I opened up the floor because I had about four things I wanted to tell you in advance of this exercise, and I think the three of you just covered them. So, at the risk of repeating you a little bit, I'll just drive a couple of these points home. So, we gave the students the evaluation criteria that you all came up with, right? When we talked about in January what we want downtown to be, it's a vibrant mixed-use area, it's magnetic and distinct, it's environmentally sustainable, it's supportive of business, and it's multimodal, right? And the students took that and we charged them with translating these overarching visions into like possibilities of what that could look like, right? To Christine's point, right? It's very challenging to look at that list of five values and imagine how that could be materialized, right? And so what this does is it provides an opportunity for us to look at these renderings and say, that is what it looks like or this, this is what it looks like to start translating those visions into reality, right? I would say beyond that, right? The focusing on not a single one of the projects that they brought to the table is something that is buildable, right? And we're not proposing that they are that we're going to roll out the project as imagined. But there are tremendous design elements and tremendous features in here that we can draw from, right? And so our exercise today is really focused on pulling out those key themes that can inform our design standards, that can inform our urban design framework, and that can be we can begin to find some shared elements that we can that we're coalescing around that we want to advance or study further, right? And so the way that I kind of imagine us structuring this exercise is so I figure I'll break you into three small groups, and we'll spend the next hour trying to get through the first 8 renderings. 14 is a lot. There's a lot of content here, right? And we don't want to rush this because this is important work. And the discussion that I want you to have is not, is this a good idea or not? That's not important, right? Like, I want you to find things in this that you like or that you really, really strongly dislike, and you want to make sure that is communicated, right? But mostly focusing on the things that you like and you want us to study further, or you want to inform future design iterations. Does that charge or that ask make sense for activity day? Or do you have any questions about kind of what we'll be spending our next hour or so doing? Okay. I think we have until 7:15 in small groups, and then we'll come back, discuss this I want to have some share outs from the small groups. My ask is that each of your groups designates a scribe and to write down these comments so they get captured, because I don't think our 15-minute share out will give us a chance to get all of those on the record, right? And I want to make sure this input is documented. And then I think I'll leave it there. I've got one other charge for you, but we'll talk about that in the next agenda item. With that, I have engineered some groups here based on folks who were at the session and those who weren't, just so we've got some balanced groups. And so in the mayor's group, I'm going to have Kelsey, Caden, Kathy, and I'm going to have Tudor join that group too. Just you're here, and you were at the session. In Council President's Pratt's group, I'm going to have Christina, Chris, and Janet. And then in Skip's group, I'm going to have Ben, Counselor Sacco on a laptop, Janine, and Chris. Is there anybody that I missed here? Skip's got a group, right? So with that, how about we just kind of break into some clusters and we can start moving through this. Aquila and I will float around. All right. So I heard some tremendous conversation there and a lot of really good feedback, discussion, and responses. So I'd like to take maybe the next 15 minutes or so and just share some of the big things that stood out as a group. Maybe first, I'd love to hear your reactions to how that exercise went. If you felt like you were getting at like a clear set of questions or whether it was kind of more meandering and could use additional clarity. And then second, I'd really be interested in the themes that you found emerging, either particular design elements that stood out to you and your group loved, or things that you saw throughout multiple designs that you kept coming back to and saying, we want this, we want this, we want this. Anything that you're think the whole group should hear, I'd love to hear it.
I'll jump on in.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, I think it went really well. I enjoyed our group's conversation. There were times where I feel like we kind of got like lost in the sauce of like some detail stuff. A lot of it was kind of parking, and then how do we get developers to really want to build what the community would then be able to enjoy, kind of going hand in hand. A lot of what we liked was bringing in natural material. I think some of them didn't quite have that. Curved aspect. Jillian had really good comments on that of like how your brain perceives those things and like draws you into it. But we always do the boxes because it makes more sense from the architectural person to get the bodies in there and the space usable. But the curves are really nice. Community space, using like the trees, representing like the rain, all of those things we really enjoyed. Trying to remember all the things that you wanted us to touch on. More housing, bringing those things up. So again, Jillian made a good point of if you're going back to also then build up, so you're utilizing that space in the best ways possible. I thought that was really interesting. Utilizing different roof lines, making it a little bit more eye-catching and magnetic for people to want to come into. Did I miss any? Okay.
I think right at the end there, we were talking about the last two proposals and the ideas that there's been a lot of conversation in previous meetings that about what activities that we want to like ignite the space. So we talked about having movie nights in the park. We talked about having farmers markets. We talked about all of that. And that there was one proposal, the kind of greenhouse, that if it wasn't just a greenhouse and if it was run by the Parks District or something, since it's public land, that that really provided a lot of inspiration for how to make those ideas of activities a reality, like creating that space that would draw people to the area that has been previously discussed. So I think that's the only other thing that I would add is that last proposal number 8 really kind of I want to say inspired me to think about like, oh, all of the possibilities for this site as far as if it were developed with the intention of creating farmers markets and movie nights and being a space, a space for prom or space for whatever, that became really interesting. And you were saying that the clear aspect of those buildings really kept with what you were doing with the art walk and really respecting what people with the plaza, that the views that people had, even though there was a building there, it wouldn't look like a wall that was obstructing the view of the people that already live there. It would be kind of a continuation of that view, even though it was developed. So I really liked that comment. Thank you.
Yeah, yes. I enjoyed doing this project this way. It was nice to hear from folks that had been at the presentations to kind of get a little bit more information from them, and to just have kind of a group discussion about each site. Yeah, I feel like we talked a lot about functionality of each of the proposed options, thinking about parking and floodplains and how are people going to be able to see the businesses or be able to get to things that way. So I feel like we kind of gravitated more toward simplicity and greenery in our discussions of the project sites. Yeah, I don't know if this is the moment to get into some of the nitty-gritty notes.
I would love to hear a couple examples of like nitty-gritty observations, either
Sure.
on specific sites or some themes that came out. But
Yeah. We agreed with enjoying spaces that were set back from the street and having greenway on the outsides and buildings being raised higher. One of the sites that we really liked seemed very accessible to seniors with all of its yeah, I'm trying to remember which one. I think it was number 5. Yeah, how there were visual ramps and parking below, and it just seemed very accessible for people who may have other access needs. So that was something that we talked about a lot. We also talked a lot about window placements for some of these and thinking about temperature if things are placed like east and west. Whoops. Yeah, and just about certain things being visually stunning. The project with the sails, that was project number 4 with the sail shades. That one probably had the most positive comments from us, as well as project number 8. Project number 8, the nursery next to the Grange, that felt like something really tangible and pretty simple that could be implemented with agreement from the Grange. Yeah, and talked a lot about um, spaces for pedestrian walking, curves as well, feeling very inviting, and yeah, just excited about potential like festival street things. Um, yeah, so most of the ones we were particularly excited about felt like they had great community spaces, spaces for gathering, as well as a bit of that mixed use housing and commercial. Yeah. You guys want to add anything else?
One of the things I mentioned was on the site number 1, most of the students want to have bunch of facilities within the area. You know, it was living, a gym, those small stores, mixed retail, pharmacy, shopette, so that you could live and work in that building. Maybe um, especially with people working remote. Multiple students talked about the idea of being able to do everything from that one place, that everything they needed was in that one block. And if it wasn't there, at least they could walk somewhere else. And I thought that was very intriguing for, the new way work is being done, that you can have spaces like that draw a lot of young professionals to our city, in terms of housing, and then having the greenhouse idea where, just like you were just mentioning, having it as a multifunctional facility versus just a greenhouse, that you tied that in with, block number 1. And that's a huge draw for people, one, to live here, and two, to come and participate in things. But the whole idea of, live, work, play in one block, I was like, wow, okay, no, you don't need a car and stuff like that. And a lot of the folk, I think 3 of them had the same idea, that you wouldn't have to leave the building, basically. Everything, all your needs were met.
And they did have in that same building, they had a workout space, and they had a market space, and they had a childcare center. So that's just about everything.
One I had question was pharmacy. No one will have our local pharmacy, local independent pharmacy doesn't survive.
Yeah, with that, we discussed like how some of the design elements, especially like with the sails, felt a little bit European, and that I feel like making a community on one block feels very much of that, because when you're there, it feels like it's very walkable. You don't have to go very far to be in community space or be close. It's nice that we have the lake there, be close to some water, transit, or yeah, home and shopping.
Kristen has her hand up.
Thank you. What you just said, Kelsey, reminded me of something that was said in our group. And I forgot who said it exactly. But this concept of being timeless, and whatever we gravitate to, just making sure that it doesn't feel outdated, where you're in a space and you're like, wow, I can tell this was built in the 90s, or
Yep.
we can tell that this was built in, and we did talk about Lake Oswego a little bit, and when Lake Oswego was built, and it still feels relevant. And not that we have to copy and paste Lake Oswego, but just having that timeless feel seems to be of importance from our group.
And then the one thing I think other groups talked about was parking. In most of the presentations, the parking was under the structure for block number 1. They were envisioning, underground parking, like 1 or 2 levels, I think I remember, to address the parking needs for both the people who live there, work there, shop there, and the area. As Kathy mentioned, we're going to lose a lot for Robson Crossing businesses, so they don't lose spots, for people who want to run down the Machitas and stuff. So
The one thing we talked about was when you have the lower level be multi-use that it's sometimes Portland's having this problem and Jillian can talk to it more, but sometimes you can't get retail people in there. So you have to keep it open to different uses for a while. It might be community space or we're talking about like where people could lease workspaces or project spaces, but just to be flexible to not make it just retail.
Do you have anything else, Kelsey? The one thing the one with the green and spots and stuff, we're all we're all like, yeah, the polka dots are like, we like the visual stunningness of it. Don't know we like the design itself, but a building that's visually stunning. But yeah, yeah,
Well, we loved it.
yeah, yeah. So there's a third group, right, Quinn?
Yeah.
I'm doing my best. Well, there were a few things that the code would have to address. We think the underground parking, the building heights. We didn't know what the rules and regulations on that and codes for setbacks. There's we want a character. It needs to be a certain character. We like the different building heights on number one, all the variety, all of them having different building heights, so they just all aren't the same. But also we're concerned about shade and some buildings shading other buildings.
Oh, yeah.
And that needs to be something to think about. We also like the mixture of building materials with the wood, the focus on the wood. We like there needs to be a balance between the living space and the open space. Will businesses and tenants want to be in that space? That's what we were just mentioning. We have experience with that with a shopping center that our family owns and 9 spaces and people moving in and out and, oh, will this be a good mix? And 20 years later, there's a completely different mixture.
Yep.
So it has to have some flexibility. Yeah, we were talking about setbacks in some areas of the development. You want room to move around, and with the buildings of different sizes and different scale, it feels it followed the guidelines. The guidelines wanted that, and they did a good job of doing that. And that's something we do feel is important, different scale. There's the layout of the 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, and 4. There needs to be a focus on a path running through somehow all 4 of those.
Yeah. Yep.
And we saw that in building 1 and also later in building 4, that area, and then that lily pad project where you went across through the lake. So there needs to be that feel of connectivity to draw people all the way through and into the park. We're looking for timeless design. Thanks, Ben. That was your suggestion. We like the shops on lower levels, easy access for the residents, and the greenhouse was a hit with all of us, with the transparency, with all kinds of uses. It could be used for so many different things. Kristen mentioned the Seattle Spheres, Spheres. You might look that up. They're glass structures in the big buildings, and she brought it up on her screen, and we got to look at it. It looked very interesting. But the idea of having businesses, food carts, coffee shops, and maybe like garage doors that open up, and then smaller scale buildings close to the lake were important. What else? What did I leave out?
Well, I think sorry. The one thing is we look at, like, for instance, if you look at project number 4, and, everybody liked kind of that, the European street here with the the banners. But, you look at the buildings and, how this is an architectural term, but basically the fenestrations. So the variety and the depth of the buildings, the openings in the buildings. So as you look, that creates that interest, that draws that scale down. And so, to me, that's an important thing as we look at the buildings, that there is that variety. Because then you look at that and you look at the kind of the modern architecture above it. And, with the smooth surfaces, when you're against those, that can feel uncomfortable. So, so again, I just think that just comes down to, we want to make sure that there's a variety, of the transparency. The transparency helps break that because you can see through. And so there's not just a lot of mass.
Yeah.
Now the sphere is a little different because there, and I've not been there, but just in the quick view of the image there, yeah, you've got this sphere that's all glass, but it is placed right against a building that is very slick and very smooth. But you kind of lose the building, but it's the sphere that you really are drawn to.
Mhm.
So, just interesting concepts. So that, and I guess we all kind of talk around it, but the buildings should look and really represent Tualatin. So it shouldn't be like what you'd see at another location. And don't quite know what that is. But anyway. And I would just say, I think, we're all drawn to wood, but over time, wood is very difficult to deal with. It's not a long-term material. It will always gray out, as we all know. Requires a lot of maintenance, but there are elements that can be done to represent that. And, we think, Tualatin is the tree city, right?
Mhm.
And so, that's why that one concept, was it the number one that has the
Number
little
one.
trees? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was interesting.
Yeah.
So there's can be some symbolism, but I think there are things like that can be creative ways to kind of say Tualatin in a way that works and creates that that uniqueness of what we want.
Other comments? So we'll look at the rest of the designs next month, but that'll bring us to item number 6, preview of summer community engagement plan. Quinn.
Yeah, so this segues very nicely with the exercise we were just doing, right? So Sid and I imagine, well, actually, maybe taking it from where Skip left us, right? Like, we do want to define a distinctly Tualatin design, right? Which is the point of the urban design framework and design standards that we're working to create, right? And so as we kind of keep pointing in that direction, trying to like coalesce around some of these elements that represent Tualatin, these design elements that say Tualatin that we want people to build towards, we want to expand the amount of input that we're collecting, right? And so the exercise we did today here, Sid and I imagined doing something like this at a larger scale, opening it up to the community in general. And so I'm hoping to maybe take the next 10 minutes or so to get some feedback and ideas from you all about how we can make that work, because there's so much information here. And every single conversation I was plugged into, I heard the folks who were at the architecture design finals providing additional context, right? So I've got a couple questions that can guide this, but I also am just open to general feedback, right? So do you feel like there's enough information on this page standing alone that like somebody can look at it and offer useful feedback? Do you feel like this is the type of exercise that we could do via like a survey versus having like where we just send it out to people and we say, what do you think? Or do we need to be doing this in more focus group like activities like this, where we can facilitate it and make sure that those conversations are guided? And that's kind of maybe what I'm pointing towards, and I know some folks are already to weigh in. So Council President Pratt, do you want to start?
Do you have like when they did the presentations, what you have on the wall, I got so much more out of it than this.
Yeah.
Like if you had where you had like an open house and brought people in and had those on the wall, I think they would get a lot better feel for the concepts.
Did the students take those back or leave those with us?
They took them back, but we have copies.
Photos.
We got photos, and we can get the many of the like the raw files and recreate them.
You wouldn't need all the information that they had on those.
No.
Yeah, because you don't want to make it overwhelming. Yeah.
That's the
Right.
balance we're trying to
Just
strike.
Part of,
Photos,
yeah.
Yeah, not those long lists of things and what specific things they saw going in there, but a lot of the visual stuff.
So some of like the floor plans and the sites that provide a little bit more context to what composes these buildings.
Yeah, I was going to say off of what Valerie was saying, I agree. I think something more of like a focus group that maybe you have a visual, but then you also have, what were our things that we gave to them that they needed to work off of to give what we were looking for. And then maybe to go along with it, just like in this photo, you can't quite see, but this is
Right.
what they were meaning for parking. This is where they were meaning for like the pathway that they can then join. So like having some of that information that leads them into the next lot and how it flows and what materials were used, parking, that kind of stuff.
Except, I think it'd be tough. I mean, to have someone who was at the presentation be tough, depending on how many groups there are. But that element of the core details that you don't see from a picture, I think is critical to fill in the gaps of like when we're like looking at some of the pictures, Katie and I were tag teaming the ones we saw
Yeah.
to fill in where they envisioning the pictures, about parking. What are these things over here? It's like, oh, those are the townhomes or single. People are not going to see that from the picture. So not overwhelming detail, but basic information. Yeah. Jillian.
I wanted to recommend to actually narrow the focus of the questions. If you have too much leeway, is how you get names like Bodie McBoatface, right? Like that's how that happens if everyone can just fill in the blank. But, does this design, do you feel drawn in by this design? What would make you feel more drawn in? What do you, what do you like about this? Do you like, the color, the style, the height? Do you think, if it's pulled back from the center, and taller, that's better than pushed all the way to the edge and having a pathway through? But those types of questions that are going to guide decision making, because I think everyone's going to have, I mean, if you put 20 people in a focus group, they're all going to have 20 different opinions about what would look great at that site. And that's wonderful. But if what you're looking back for is more widespread feedback, I think you have to narrow down the questions about specifically what are you like, what is it that about site one, based on the feedback from this group, that you want feedback from the community on? Is it height? Is it density? Is it use? Is it public ownership or private ownership or parking? Like, what are the specific things that you want feedback on? And then present the renderings and ask those questions about the renderings. Like, does this rendering draw you in, make you want to walk? If I told you that it had 30 parking spaces, what would you think? If I told you it had 50 parking spaces, would that change your opinion? Like those types of more specific questions where it's like more putting a sticker on my favorite item rather than widespread feedback. Just as someone who's done quite a bit of community engagement, if you go too broad, you don't really get useful data. And so to make that reach, have the widest reach and reach the most people and create the most data that can guide decision making, I actually think you have to narrow down exactly like, what am I looking for? Like what decisions about lot one are we making? And then present these renderings and then ask the questions about those decisions.
Makes sense. Skip.
Yeah, you're absolutely right in what you're saying. I think to me, what was really powerful was the model.
Yeah.
And as I understand, everybody had their project fit in the model, right?
Yeah.
Now, we didn't see all of that because unfortunately they didn't really use the model.
Yeah.
But that model could be a really strong draw because people can visualize much better when you have that versus just a drawing or a plan. So the drawings can be used as kind of more as images, but the model could really be a draw for people to see. And then, yeah, you could use that model with some of the renderings, with some specific kind of questions that people could comment on, or you could put the stickies on with the questions, just like what you're saying. Um, and, but then you could address it more to the themes that we're after, because the whole idea is we've already set up what we want the project to obtain. And so the question is do these concepts bring that out? And that was the one thing that as the students did their work, I didn't hear anybody kind of go back to these are the goals that you wanted to accomplish, and here has how I addressed those. And and that's why I brought up at the end, because when you're talking to a client, these are young students, we're trying to teach them. That's what you want to do. As an architect, you create the vision, you develop the vision statement of what the goals are. Everybody loves it on, in writing. Now it's the architect's jobs to make it real, in the design. And so you always refer back to these are your goals, here how we addressed that. And so that's where the public could help provide that input on, which ones accomplish what we set up to accomplish. And then it's very easy to guide that discussion and the participation. So.
Valerie.
Just on what Skip said with that model, when I looked at that model at the end of the day, that's when I could really visualize how all the whole area could flow together. So I think it was really valuable to have the model.
Yeah, because that key is that connectivity.
Right.
And it was hard when all these were presented in the pieces, it was hard to really visualize how could that connectivity happen, because that's what we want to do. We want people to come to the city and be able to walk through the whole downtown area and interact. And you could have different projects at each one. And so each one is a whole new experience in itself as you walk through. So.
And like Skip's saying, I mean, the effort was made to make this model, and then each student made their own little, took the pictures here and actually built a physical model and putting the layouts and swapping things out. I mean, we got to use that thing big time.
Definitely.
Because that's where you can vision, if we did, I'd say, pick on, idea number one with the greenhouse idea with this, wow, that flows nice, and swap things out. But Janet, sorry.
Excuse me. One of the things that we do with the Arts Committee when we have a survey that we want to put out about artwork, because it's so subjective, is just we do it in levels. Julie's a master at this, getting it out there. But I would suggest that the very first question be, does this look like Tualatin to you? And that's just a green dot, that people go, does this picture look like Tualatin? Not getting into the weeds about parking, not getting into the weeds about, oh, this is housing, this is this, but does it look like it? What is the aesthetic that you're looking at? And we came up with something which is like the rounded, that was more welcoming, that brings you more joy. Well, that's us. That might not be everybody. But having a very broad question like that, does this look like Tualatin to you? And then the people who are interested from that viewpoint can come in and do more research on it. Hey, we've got a more detailed setup. We've got a more detailed kind of survey that you can take from this initial one. If you like that, let's find out more about how this can be implemented. And so do it. I do it on 2 levels. I wouldn't do it on multiple all at once, because people are, and when we did the all of the playground pieces at Afality, that was a huge survey that Ross put together for that entire neighborhood. He did a whole big come together. These are all the pieces of equipment we can give you. And I think they had almost 200 people there at one of those gatherings. And he just ticked off, this is what you can have, what would you like here? And from that, he was able to put together exactly what's in that park right now. And it started in a simplistic look. What colors do you like? which age groups do you want to, and then it got even into more detail. But I think my initial was, does this look like Tualatin? And you're probably going to get as many answers as you got people. But I know that from the Arts Committee.
I find this exceptionally helpful. You all have tremendous perspective on how to do this. So in terms of community engagement, what Sid and I will do is we're going to take the perspective that you all offered here today, as well as the feedback that you wrote down. I'm hoping to make sure I can get those notes from our 3 scribes before you leave. That's fine. That's fine too if that's easier. But sure, I'll do some decoding. I'll be on the phone with you. But the but taking the feedback I received from you all today, just through your small groups, as well as just now, I think Sid and I will work together to sketch out a community engagement plan for the summer, and then in the May meeting, we'll bring it back to you, and I would like you to see if it works, and I'll help us take it to the next level. So, I think we've got 10 minutes left, and
Yeah, so you got your downtown updates next?
yeah, I'll pinch it for Sid here. So I've got four things for you. So first thing is we finished our architecture design studio course, as you all know. We'll have a full report from them by the end of June, I believe, just like it's the same timeline as the other classes. So you'll have a big, thick report with all of those, like the deep documentation on each site. And we'll bring that to your binder, or we'll give it to you for your binder here in a few months. The grant that we're writing for phase 3 of this project, we brought it to, I think we shared an update on that last time, but we're writing a Metro grant to fund the 3rd phase of work, creating an urban design framework and design standards. We brought that to the city council last week, and they supported us. They supported the proposal, so thank you. I also want to thank Jillian and SEPA for writing a letter of support, and the chamber for also adding a letter of support to that application. Separately, the CCIO has written 2 letters of support for the Riverfront Park grants. And so thank you to many of you for finding additional ways to support the work that we're doing here. We're not expecting to hear back on the Metro grant until the end of June. And so we'll keep you updated on that, but we're looking forward to potentially leveraging some extra funds to support this work. On May 29th, I'll send you a calendar invite for this, but we'll be having an end of year kickoff event or end of year celebration for the Sustainable City Year program. Sorry. So that'll be at from 4 to 5:30 in this room here. We'll bring back some of the students. We'll have some of the professors. A lot of folks will be coming up from Eugene, and we will extend the invitation to all of you, as well as some of the other community partners who are interested. So for those of you who attended the event in October, it'll be similarly structured, but instead of talking about what we will do, it'll be celebrating all that we've accomplished. So that's something to look forward to. And then finally, I think we've been providing periodic updates to you on the Tualatin Sherwood Road grade separation project, and you all may be able to weigh on add additional context to this. But my understanding is a couple weeks ago, that was presented. A preliminary study was presented to council, and council narrowed down that project to 2 options. And so they're continuing to study a larger scale building project which would involve a flyover of the railroad on Tualatin Sherwood Road. They're also exploring no type of grade separation project, but one that would involve smaller scale intersection improvements that would hopefully improve traffic flow. And so the engineering firm is going to study both of those options further, and then we'll do some more extensive community engagement as they get into preliminary design phase, just to kind of temper all your expectations and hopes, right? This is particularly that larger building phase or larger building scale would be 5, 10, 15 years out, right? It is a long time frame to be able to leverage federal funds to do a project like that. So we're doing this design work now, which will get us in the queue for federal funding if that's the direction that council opts to go. But a project of that scale would have a tremendous impact on downtown, opening up that southern border, potentially adding in some permeability to the kind of that southern district. So those are my 4 updates for you. Any questions or things you'd like more information on? Just keeping you in the loop.
All right. That brings us to item 8, wrap up loose ends, previews of next meetings. So looking ahead, on May 6th, our next meeting will continue on looking at the remaining designs and getting people's feedback on that. And we might begin scoring the next batch of recommendations from U of O if we have time. June 3rd, we're scoring, so make sure to bring your devices for that. July 1st, we should be done with grading, if you will, scoring all the fall recommendations. And then finally, August 5th, we'll be getting near the end of phase 2. And so we'll have more content from the extra 3 projects, the floodplain, the pedestrian project, and the
Stormwater.
stormwater.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got still a lot of work ahead in the next 4 months. Luckily it's still all very interesting, and we look forward to all your input on that. In closing, we always do this feedback loop. How you feel, how the meeting went today, and or if you have any announcements you'd like to make to the group about your organizations, this would be the time. Everybody okay with how today went? Enjoyed it? Okay. Just do the shake hands. Jazz hands. Yep. Okay. All right. Any announcements for your organizations, the chamber, CIOs? Nothing? Cert?
I just want to, for those of you who haven't gone to the senior fair that Ben Ben puts on, and it's another year away, I suppose, your next one, but it's well worth your time. They do a fantastic job. CERT was one of their booths, and we're so impressed with how organized they were. So it's a great event. And you meet a lot of people from the community too. It's lots of folks there. So congratulations on another great year.
All right. With that, we'll go ahead and conclude the meeting. Thank you. Safe drive home.